she pivoted more than a point guard in the NBA does. She was able to change the direction so much during the whole campaign. And I think at one point it kind of, when you watch that over and over, you want to say, why don't you answer the question? So it could have hurt her a little bit, but that was a strategy, and she stuck with it.
What do you know about politics? What should you know? Forget views, beliefs, and opinions. Politics is really a science, and that's where we come in. Welcome to Inside Political Science. I'm Kirby Goodell.
I'm Todd Kent, and we're your guides to what's actually happening in politics. We're using our years of experience to navigate political data, media, money, behavior, and more to educate and inform you.
Welcome to episode 12. We're now less than 2 months until Election Day. Todd, in any other country, that seems like a long election period, but in the United States, that seems like we're right on top of the election. I'm Kirby Goodell, professor of political science in the Bush School.
I'm Todd Kent, instructional professor at the Department of Political Science.
And we're getting out of the debates, and we thought maybe we should start off by reminding people what we thought going into the debate. What were you looking for going into the debate?
Well, I felt like that really this debate, Donald Trump has been around a long time, and people, he was not going to be a surprise to people. So I thought this was a very important debate for Kamala Harris, and I was looking for two things. First of all, will she show a command of the issues? Because that was kind of been the knock on her recently, that she doesn't do interviews. And the second thing is, can he close the gap with Donald Trump on the economy? Because the economy remains, for Republicans and Democrats, the number one issue in America. And at least right now, the polls say that Donald Trump, people would trust him more with the economy than her. Can she close that gap?
Yeah, and I agree with those points and was looking for many of the same things. The one sort of additional thing is I thought this, even though people know who Trump is, this offered Trump an opportunity to define Kamala Harris in the context of a one-on-one setting and to go after her directly. And I wondered, would she be rattled? The spotlight is different when you're in a presidential debate, and it's easy to get a little knocked off or a little bit derailed from what you're trying to accomplish and what your focus is. And would Trump be able to knock her off a little bit? And then the other thing is the expectations going into the debate, I thought, worked against Kamala Harris a little bit. In hindsight, I'm not as sure about that, but going into it, I thought she was seen as the prosecutor, as the person who would be able to bring the case at Trump, and that worked a little to her disadvantage as long as Trump stayed focused and was able to focus on the issues and focus on the Biden-Harris record and try to tie her to that record. So those were our expectations going in. What do you think happened?
Well, I think broadly, she was able to execute her strategy much better than he was. In fact, I don't know what his strategy was. I mean, his strategy was to respond to everything that she said, which was a bad strategy. No, but really, she stayed on message. She continually just attacked him and kind of, like you said, prosecuted him, and she did that without answering any questions.
Yeah.
So she probably got away with kind of not having to deal with the policy issues and was able to put him on the defensive, which he was the whole evening. I still can't figure out what his strategy was.
I think he had one, but go back. I like boxing analogies often when we talk about the campaigns and political events, because this is the Mike Tyson, everybody's got a fight plan until they get hit, and I think that's what happened to Trump in this particular debate setting. They actually had a plan. I think his advisors would say he got hit, and once he got hit, he got completely off plan, and he couldn't be back in until maybe at the very end of the debate. But I don't know whether you had the same reaction I did when the debate first opened and they asked the question to Kamala Harris about the economy and whether the economy was better than it was when Trump was president. I thought she stumbled badly right out of the gate, and my immediate thought was, she's dodging the question, she's not answering the question directly, and she's not providing an economic plan. She's not dealing with the single most important issue in the election. This is not good.
No, I agree with you, and I think that was the time when Trump should have pounced, where he should have said, we have an administration that we're at $34 trillion in debt. Our interest payments on the debt are now exceeding defense spending. Inflation's high. People can't buy homes. He should have just jumped all over that. And I think that was kind of what I kept seeing is all these opportunities. Use the baseball analogy, swing and a miss.
Yeah.
That just she kind of laid it out there and really. Right off the bat with the economy talk.
Yeah, I was really concerned going in after that first question in terms of whether she was going to be able to handle the spotlight. I agree. Trump had a better opportunity there to really focus on his plan. He didn't capitalize on it, and then they moved to abortion with an abortion question directed at Donald Trump, and then it's his time to squirm.
Right, where he's trying to. I think he's been trying to take a more middle of the road position and trying to take the edge off, and he kept kind of doing that. And I think he didn't do it well, but that was where it looked to me like that's what he was trying to do is to kind of move to take it off the table.
Yeah, and it's very tricky for him because I don't think it's an issue that's been a driving issue for him, but it's been important for him in terms of getting elected in 2016 because I know a number of Republicans who have told me that I was a little uncertain about Donald Trump, but at the end of the day, it's about the court, it's about abortion, it's about Roe v. Wade, and I'll hold my nose and I'll vote for him, and he delivered for them. And so in that way, he has a major victory for his base. But in today's politics, abortion, since that decision, abortion has been an incredibly mobilizing force for the Democratic Party. It's driven voters to turn out. It's driven them to vote directly on initiatives. And it's a tricky position now for Trump to be in. Sort of a let's let the states decide is not the pro-life position that he had in 2016. It's tricky on his side on that particular. The politics of it are super tricky there.
Well, and this is something that I think we can get into more today. In this idea of who's watching and who's undecided, and like an issue like abortion, is that going to move numbers for either candidate? Because you would expect those that are kind of paying attention to politics over the last couple of years, if abortion is a major issue to them, they already know which candidate that they support. Yeah. And so my question is, even though it's out there and there seemed to be some fumbling, is it really going to change the makeup of the voter pool? Yeah,
and also what he was trying to do, and I hope people picked up on this because as a political strategy, this makes a lot of sense. And Republicans have been trying to employ this strategy on the abortion issue is to say we're not the extremists, they're the extremists. But he may have gone a little too far there. I don't. Right. We can. No. That's more of a subjective type of opinion question, but it's still what we want people to understand is what. Part of his answer is to say the Democrats are the extremists on this issue. They want abortion on demand. We're the more reasonable people. We're saying let the voters decide.
Yeah, and any effort along that line, I think he fell short of what trying to say, look, they want abortion, all the way past 9 months. You know what I mean? And so it became he became to arguing the same point over and over again. And I think that. Instead of saying, look, we're not going to win this battle tonight, so let's move on.
Yeah, and then I thought the big change in the debate, where Kamala Harris won the debate, and we can talk about what it means to win the debate and whether this is a clear win or and whether it was a knockout or a decision on points or whatever sort of analogy we want to use there. But I think the key was on the immigration question where she's weak, and she threw in the little jab about go to his rallies and watch. People are getting bored and they're leaving early. And Trump has the chance on this to really hit on the border and to really hit on immigration and to hit on a place where Democrats are weak. But she baits him, and he takes the bait on crowd size. And from that moment on, he's angry Trump.
Right. No, I agree. Again, swing and a miss. There was a softball out there to take. We know that immigration is the number 2 issue for Republicans, but it's also it's not a huge issue for Democrats. But I think it might be one of the issues maybe an undecided voter might be thinking about. You know, they watch the news. There's always something going on, and so I think that was an opportunity. Again, she was able to change directions. She pivoted more than a point guard in the NBA does. You know, she was able to change directions so much during the whole campaign, and I think at one point it kind of, when you watch that over and over, you want to say, why don't you answer the question? So it could have hurt her a little bit, but that was a strategy, and she stuck with it.
Yeah, and she was able to then throw in these little things and answers that weren't always related to the question that was being asked, and he constantly took the bait. So there was the jab at him for inheriting $400 million and then declaring bankruptcy 6 times and talking, and that wasn't the point of the question, and he had an opportunity to hit her on the economy and the lack of an economic plan, and yet he took the bait.
Right. You know, it's I think the mistake that I think he made, you don't have to answer everything that's said.
Yeah.
And you know, and you just move on and make sure that at the end of the day, your key points that you want to make are made clearly.
Yeah.
Even if you have to make them over and over again.
Yes.
That when somebody goes by and say, "Gosh, he talked about the economy all night," that would have been a good thing. But
yeah.
But I think this need to respond is probably the thing that hurt him the most.
Yeah, and he was definitely responding, but he was also responding to the smaller piece of the bigger question, because going into it, you do think, if you were advising his campaign, I would have started saying, all right, don't even call it the Biden-Harris administration. Don't call it the Biden administration. Don't bring up Biden. If you bring up Biden, always say the Harris-Biden administration. Always put her first, and then connect him to Biden if you want to do that. But make sure you're saddling her with what's happened over the last 4 years, and then also make sure that you are really going after her for not doing more, because she wants you to look to the future. She doesn't want you to look to the past. She doesn't want you to answer the retrospective voting question in political science. This is the famous Ronald Reagan question: are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? She wants to avoid that, and you've got to force her to be accountable for the administration she was a part of. And he just got distracted.
Yeah, he did, and and this is something I think after our break we should discuss, is this idea of the viewer who's watching this hour-and-a-half debate, how many are actually watching the whole time? Mm-hmm. Or they just get a little glimpse of, and they take their opinions based on a short time? And really, how many of there can actually be moved?
Yeah, and we do know that that in terms of the viewing audience here, this was a more watched debate than the first debate. I think the numbers were 67 million viewers. And I think it was about a third more. I forget. I had the numbers written down. I should have had them clear. So more people were watching, because people were interested, I think, in 2 things: the question of who is Kamala Harris. Let's define her. Let's figure out who she is. Let's figure out whether she can be a president. And then the other part of the question is Donald Trump going to be the focused Donald Trump we saw in the first debate, or is he going to be the Donald Trump at his rallies sometimes, where he's going off on tangents and side points?
No, you're exactly right. In fact, I looked up the numbers. This debate had the same amount of viewers as the George H.W. Bush, Ross Perot, Bill Clinton debates of 1992. So we go back to them, we find a debate with about the same number of viewers.
And that's pretty remarkable, because that the world's changed a lot over that period of time. And one of the things that we know how the world has changed is people have more viewing options, and so it's harder to attract those types of large audiences. So the fact that they had the large audiences comparable to that period is remarkable for lots of reasons.
It does show us some interest in what's going on, because you're right. Today's viewer, you can watch the recaps later that night if you want. You can, I know students that I work with, they'll watch clips over the next day. They don't have to see it in person anymore. But we had, with 67 million, that's actually a very large audience.
Yeah, and so that's a great point, I think, because one of the things that we've talked about and we've thought about is most people aren't watching all the way through. And so even if the numbers are very good, most people are forming their opinion often on the interpretations that come out after the debate and the clips that become viral. I haven't had a chance to really get a sense of which clips are viral yet. I know the Springfield, Ohio pet eating has
Right.
been moving some on Twitter and getting, or X, and getting lots of play. What do you think there was a single sort of viral moment, the sort of I know Jack Kennedy type of moment in this debate, or
That's a good question. I think I was actually looking for some viral ones last night as I was prepping a little bit. When for Trump it was when he said, "I'm talking."
Yes,
kind
yes.
of don't interrupt me,
Yes.
type thing. For her, because she followed the same pattern. One thing I remember when they were talking about crime statistics, and Trump was kind of kept trying to make his point and got bigger and bigger and bigger. That
Yeah.
the crime around the world is down because of all the immigrants. And I think that was a weak point. And then they asked Kamala, "What do you think about the crime statistics?" And she said immediately attacked Donald Trump because he had been prosecuted 34 times,
Yes, yeah.
or been indicted 34 times. So I think it was those are the viral moments that I remember about her, that just not answering the question but going back after Trump because that was a strategy.
Yeah, and clearly her strategy was, if there is a viral moment to come out of this particular debate, I want it to be him.
Right.
It wasn't going to be the put down from her campaign at him as much as it was going to be, let's see if I can get him flustered and see if I can get him to make a mistake.
What's interesting is if you look at since social media is so big today, it's what the memes are, and I think Donald Trump lost the meme war because it's all about animals, and so
Yeah.
cats and birds, and so I think that's where people they're making jokes about it, and I think that tends to hurt you.
Yeah, and it's hard to recover from those particular type of moments. One other thing that I noticed in some of the numbers about who was watching is that it was younger people who were the new audience, right? So people, you're no offense, but people our age are going to watch the debate no matter what. We're going to watch no matter who the candidates are because we're political junkies. But this debate did attract some younger people into it, and it's not clear what they came away with in terms of their impressions of the candidates.
Yeah, kind of what. Yeah, it'd be interesting to ask them, what did you expect to see when you watch this? I did notice in my classes of political science majors that a large majority watched the debate. One thing that came out in one of the polling organizations, they asked people if they'd watched the debate, and they said yes, and they asked, how long did you watch it? 44% of, at least in this one poll, said we watched it all the way through, which meant the other 56% were dabbling.
Yeah.
Watched 30 minutes, 20 minutes or whatever, just to kind of see what was going on. But the debates get a little tiring if you watch them.
Yes.
They're not that exciting usually, and there's a lot of kind of posturing and that type of thing. So maybe it's surprising that 44% stayed the whole time.
Yeah, and so from a political science standpoint, oftentimes when we're trying to figure out the effect of watching something, we need to know whether people are exposed, but we also need to know how much attention they're paying to it. And in their home, unless we're bringing them into a lab and we're saying, pay close attention to this, where we can often see strong effects in their home, they're cooking dinner, or they're going to the fridge and getting a drink, or they're wandering around, or somebody's calling them on the phone during the debate, and so they aren't paying the type of attention that maybe we are to this particular debate.
In fact, I was watching it with my wife, and she said we need to go back to the Frank Lutz type focus group out there where you have a dial.
I love the dials.
And so you can watch it in real time, the numbers going up or down. And, what are moderates thinking about this, or independents and Republicans, Democrats? That would have been really interesting to see that. And maybe somebody has done that. We just haven't seen the data yet.
Yeah. The minute by minute exposure is a great thing to see in a presidential debate. So I think maybe this would be a good place to take a break and come back and talk about who won and what it means to win a debate. So when we come back, we'll talk about who won this debate.
Sounds good.
I'm Chris Boyd, host of Think. Each day we strive to expand your worldview by talking about discoveries in science and health, about new ways of considering the past and present, and about the issues that divide us and occasionally bring us together. Plus, we always save space to hear the deeply personal stories that remind us that each of our experiences is unique. I hope you'll join us next time as we take a moment to think.
Weekdays at 1 on KAMU FM.
Craving adventure? PBS Passport is your ticket to the hottest destinations in drama. Check into luxurious hotels. Hit exclusive beaches. But fair warning, travel plans can sometimes get complicated. If you've got the itch for drama, travel the world and stream now with PBS Passport on the PBS app.
All right, welcome back. So, Todd, I was talking to my class before the debate on Tuesday, and I made them do a handwritten little thing. I said, predict who's going to win the debate. And one of them very smartly, we have very good students, as you know, said, what do you mean win? And you tell me what it means to win a debate. So maybe before we jump into who won, what does it mean to win a debate in today's political environment?
To me, as a former political consultant, to win is really at the end of if you know what where you stood before the debate and after the debate, were you able to move the numbers in your direction that favors you? Yeah. Because a lot of times I think in our modern world and in instant news, we judge the winner based on who we felt like did better. Yeah. We say, oh well, she didn't get flustered, he got flustered, therefore she was the winner. But right. At the end of the day, the winner is the one where it made a difference in their campaign, because that's really the ultimate goal there, is to improve your standing among voters.
And one of the things that we know in terms of the literature on this is it's hard to show real strong, consistent debate effects across debates when we try to measure things, because a lot of the people who are watching, to our earlier points, are watching because they're partisan cheerleading, right? You're watching it because you are a Trump fan and you want to see him land some blows, or you're watching it because you're a Kamala Harris fan and you want to see her stand up. And so at the end of the day, it doesn't do much to move, because most of the people who are watching are pretty partisan to begin with. And even if they're not really strong partisans, they have partisan leanings.
Yeah, and a lot of them have made up their minds. I mean, Donald Trump is not a new figure on the block, so they know whether or not they like him, and his supporters are there to, like you said, be a cheerleader for him. So I think you're right in that it's hard to move those numbers because there's just a few undecided. And most of the time, when you get this far into a campaign, even though Kamala Harris is new to the campaign, it's still been going on for a long time. Yeah. Is that a lot of your undecideds? We would say that they're low information. That it's not that they're not smart. It's that they just don't. They would rather do other things than focus on the politics. And so. And they're the least likely to tune in for an hour and a half debate, because it's just not that important to them.
Yeah. So, but with all those qualifications aside, so far I think the headline news is people are saying that Kamala Harris dominated, or this was bad for Donald Trump. Is that right in your view? Do you think she won? I
think. Well, if you're going to say, okay, do we have a debate winner? I would say that probably the perception of her performance versus his, she's probably, in my opinion, probably was the winner. But the issue, it goes back to, does it really matter? Yeah. were there undecideds who now say, I'm going to vote for Kamala, or were there, or was she able to break his hold on kind of being judged as better with the economy or better with immigration, something like that? Was she able to break into that? And so I don't think so. I think that, when it comes to policy issues, because they didn't talk a lot about policy issues, that nobody actually was able to command a big big victory there. I think on the visual of it, certainly I think she probably would be considered the winner.
Yeah, I was, you watched the debate, and I thought Trump's performance was better than Biden's in the first debate, but really bad by any sort of historical standard because of the things we were talking about in the first half of the show. He was getting distracted. He was focusing on minor points. He was throwing out information that was, in many cases, questionable, but also just not focused, right, and not making the case. If we say what he wants to do is tie her to the Biden past 4 years, not let her be about a future, not be about a change, he failed on almost all those counts. But at the end of the day, we live in a polarized society, and Trump, especially in this environment, has become a candidate whose floor is very high. He's not going to fall below 45%. I can't imagine him falling below 45%. It's hard to imagine him getting above 50. And so it's hard to see that this moved the needle on those dynamics. The one place where I think Kamala Harris really came away and should feel very good is, well, a couple of pieces of this, and it is image. She looked more presidential, I thought. Unlike Biden in the first debate, she seemed to be aware of the camera when it was not when she was not speaking, and so she was paying attention to facial expressions and reactions. And throughout the debate, I thought, if your question is, can Kamala Harris come in and stand up to Donald Trump for 90 minutes and show that she's a strong, forceful candidate and can look presidential? I think she did that. I think she cleared that bar. There's
no doubt about it. If you looked at they did a lot of split screens, and I think they probably did that on purpose. But she looked at him, she smiled, she wasn't rattled. Where when she attacked him, you could see that he was kind of getting angry, and he was going to respond to what she said, which is exactly what she wanted him to do. I think if there's a knock, it was the fact that we didn't really come out knowing a lot more about what she would do to solve some of the big problems that we face in this country. Whether they be the inflation or the economy, interest rates, the border crime, and it may be. I was looking at some pre-work that Newsweek magazine did. They asked people, what do you want to hear? What issues do you want to hear about? And a lot of those issues are not that important to the Democrats. They wanted to hear about abortion. They wanted to hear about what's interesting to me, that one that came out was Social Security. Mm-hmm. But that they really wanted to hear about, but we didn't hear that much about that. So I think there was. The bar that she got over was, look, I look like I could be presidential. I didn't laugh about things. There were some things that knocked on her in the past when she's been in front of the camera. I think she certainly exceeded that. Probably the downside was kind of a lack of kind of policy wonkness, you know what I mean, where she could really say, well, that girl, she knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, I think she cleared the image bar if
Right.
she really wanted to instill confidence in people that this is someone with a plan for the future and knows exactly what she wants to do. I don't think she did that. And I've seen some time estimates of how much each candidate spoke, and I'll hit on part of that again in a second. But the thing that's important now, she spent more of her time attacking Trump than Trump spent his time attacking her, and I think that tells you part about her strategy. Right. Let's put him in the spotlight. Let's try to force him to make a mistake and lose the debate rather than me really win the debate by coming out as someone with a clear plan for the future.
Right. She was in a difficult position because Donald Trump, what he did not do was to kind of make her part of this Biden-Harris administration and tie the problems of today to that. He really wasn't able to do that. And she continued to say, we're not going to be a campaign that looks back. but we're going to look forward. So it's almost like you guys need to forget about everything that's happened. We're not going to talk about it. We're going to move forward.
Now, as the debate was going on, there was already on. I'm one of those people with multiple screens while I'm watching the debate. And so I'm trying to see how Twitter X is responding to the debate at the same time that it's going on. And even before the debate was over, on the Republican side, you began to see people criticize the moderators. In the first debate, just if we remember back, Biden versus Trump, lots of Democrats were criticizing the moderators. They were saying they let Trump get away with too much. They didn't step in when he was saying something that was false. These moderators decided they would step in, and they did. And so they've been accused of overstepping, which I think highlights, well, I guess the first point is just that oftentimes the moderators are in a no-win position, right? Because if they step in, they're criticized. If they don't step in, they're criticized. But do you think they helped Kamala Harris, or
Well, the criticism is that they didn't fact-check her. They didn't go back at her when she would say something. My feeling is if we're going to place blame, you really can't blame the moderators for a poor result. And you had the opportunity to speak a lot for an hour and a half. You can at least get half of that time. And so I think that former President Trump had opportunities. He was talking about the wrong things. He didn't use the time to make his points, even irrespective of the moderators.
Yeah.
So as long as I've been following presidential debates, the moderators are always biased. That's what that's what they've been saying. So I think you just go in and the good debater makes sure that at the end of the day their message is across and it's very clear. It was said over and over, so there's no mistaking what's going on.
Yeah, and he did. In terms of first getting rattled, I think on the crowd size debate, I do think the moderators stepping in did bother him a little bit because they stepped in initially on the abortion issue when he was trying to say that there are abortions after the birth to correct that, and then they stepped in on the crime issue, and then they stepped in on what was the third one? I'm having a Rick Perry debate moment here, but they stepped in on multiple issues in order to correct, and it did seem to rattle him a little bit, and added to what was already a frustrating experience, I think, for him.
Yeah, and I think that when that happens, he tends to go into it's unfair. Kind of this idea that it's unfair. I've been treated unfairly. Mm-hmm. Look how they treated me unfairly, but in the past, in my documents case, I'm prosecuted, and Joe Biden, nothing happens to him. That this kind of when he gets into that, I think that's when he loses his appeal beyond his base, when that kind of victim mentality.
Yeah, and in terms of the accounting of the time, the one thing that I thought was interesting, Trump spoke for roughly, and I may have the numbers not exactly right, I think about 32 minutes. Harris spoke for about 23, 24. And so to your point, that he did have some extra opportunities because of the way the debate played out in terms of the amount of time that he got. And then the question is, did he use the time well and to his advantage?
Right. I think we know from the research done on political advertising, you really need a clear message over and over and over again. People, we just don't hear it. Most people that are watching the debate are looking at Twitter. They're calling their mom. They're doing other stuff too. And so you have to almost say it over and over again. And I think that's where the failure was. And I've kind of been harsh with Donald Trump's performance, but I think that we kind of get away from the fact that neither candidate really was very good.
Yeah.
In the end of the day, if you say that, she probably looked better, her demeanor was better. She looked presidential. Yeah. But as far as an actual debate, I'm not sure that after about a week now that we're going to go that we're going to remember anything significant.
Yeah, so CNN did a poll, and what was neat about the poll is they talked to people before the debate, and then they talked to them after, so they knew that they were actually watching. So this is already a little misleading because we're only looking at debate watchers, and we're missing all the people who didn't pay any attention in the first place. So we should take that. Going into the debate, they asked them who they thought would win the debate. 50% said Trump, 50% said Harris. A dead even split. At the end of the debate, 63% said said Harris, sorry, and 30% said Trump. So clearly among this group of people who were watching for CNN, they thought that Kamala Harris won the debate. But and one other thing, her favorability did shift, and so she became more favorable before the debate, about a -11 on favorable, less favorable than favorable, and after the debate, plus 1 point. Trump's favorability didn't move at all. And then the other part of it, though, is only about 4% said the debate changed their mind. So even if you were a Trump supporter and you watched the debate and you said, yeah, Kamala Harris actually won the debate, then you still weren't likely to move much in terms of your overall support. So the numbers are fairly small in terms of the number of people who watched and said, yeah, I think I'm going to vote for the other person.
Yeah, and I would expect, because of the fact it was some people, I heard somebody say it's a wash, you know what I mean, at the end, that over the next couple of weeks, 3 weeks, we're going to see the influence of that debate is going to dissipate quickly. And something new is going to happen that will steal the spotlight. And I think that's, with social media the way it is. It used to be we had to go back to CBS, NBC to kind of find out what's going on. Now you just turn on your phone. And so I think that we're going to see, in the end, this was not a consequential debate. That's my.
Yeah, and so after the debate, though, maybe as consequential as the debate, Taylor Swift came out with an endorsement.
Yeah, that's a.
We've been studying endorsements for some time in political science.
Yeah.
What do you think about the endorsement?
Well, I mean, you would certainly never turn down her endorsement. You know, she's got millions and millions of fans that follow her and have been following her the last year as her big tour and relationship with the Kansas City Chief. You know, so she's certainly got that. The strongest kind of constituent of the Democrats are single females. Mm-hmm. And my guess is that group was already supporting Kamala Harris, but even pre-endorsement. The question is, how many new people did she bring to the table, or does it even matter? And so I think that the actual impact of that's probably going to be less than we think, just because most of the people that would be her supporters probably have already made up their mind.
Yeah, and when we've studied endorsements in political science, I think at best you could describe the findings of the findings of whether endorsements matter to be mixed. It depends on who's doing the endorsement. It depends on who's getting the endorsement. But one of the big things I think that is important is just saying you support someone doesn't. It's never bad. It's never. I mean, I guess we could think of some cases where you don't want someone's endorsement,
right.
but for the most part, you'd rather have an endorsement than not. But the question is someone going to put some capital behind the endorsement? Is someone going to campaign with the candidate? Are they going to use the resources that they have to encourage people to go out to vote? So Taylor Swift saying she supports Kamala Harris is certainly a good thing for the Harris campaign, but it's not clear how good of a thing it is. Does it bring someone? To your point, I don't think it brings someone who's currently supporting Donald Trump and says, oh, Taylor Swift supported Kamala Harris, let me change my mind. But what it can do is it can excite some people and get them out to the polls if Taylor Swift is actively campaigning and engaging for her, and we don't know whether that's going to happen yet.
Yeah, I've always thought that probably her best contribution to a campaign would be voter registration.
Yes.
You know, because I know that like our students here, they intend to vote, but sometimes they don't get registered. And in Texas, you have to register 30 days in advance, and so they they miss out. So I think her efforts in voter registration to young people, which we know is the group that votes in the least percentage, is, when we look at 18 to 29-year-olds, is the lowest number of voters or lowest percentage of voters within that group, that maybe she could help in that area. But I'm not sure that, like you said, that a 55-year-old Trump voter is going to say, I'm going to vote, I'm going to relook at it because Taylor Swift decided to endorse Kamala Harris.
Yeah, and we've seen some other endorsements during this campaign cycle. It's not always clear how well they play out. RFK Jr., of course, endorsing Trump and joining his campaign, sort of, though his comments after the debate were interesting. And then there's the Waltz family members who are supporting Trump. So there is this effort often to get people to endorse a campaign, and especially if it's someone who looks like they should support the other side. It seems to be something that campaigns do, that they try to use for PR purposes, but it's just not clear that it matters unless you can either bring new voters to the table or mobilize voters who are maybe not likely to vote.
Right. No, I agree with you, and I think that's why especially in local politics, you see like in the old newspapers where they would get endorsements from all elected officials and leaders in the community, and what they were trying to do is say it's okay to vote for me because look at all these other people are voting for me. And I think that's the thing. But now we're seeing this on the big scale. If Elon Musk is supporting Donald Trump, does that matter? Or
Yeah.
and so I think these are important. Personally, I think because the Waltz family kind of came out for Trump and had some issues with their relative. My guess is that it didn't change. There's nothing happened.
Yeah, and I think the Musk endorsement of Trump is probably a better parallel to the Taylor Swift, even though he's sort of a different political figure, or maybe a more polarizing political figure. But the real question is, what are they going to do as we go forward into and as we get closer and closer to Election Day? And so, what I'm going to be watching going forward from that endorsement is Taylor Swift actually putting time, money, effort, energy into helping to support Kamala Harris? Because if she does, I do think she could make a difference on the mobilization front, not the new voter front.
Right. And going forward, I think we're going to have to look at so what happens now. Is there going to be a continued call for Vice President Harris? We need to understand your thoughts on these policy issues, and then going forward, what's Trump going to do? Mm-hmm. What's his how's he going to act, and how's he going to behave going forward? Is he going to look more presidential, or is he going to continue to talk about issues that we read about on Twitter every day? So I think that's a big issue for him.
Yeah, the focus campaign, but we are now into the home stretch, and so we are looking forward to seeing the candidates try to bring all the pieces together. Message, mobilization, advertising, all of this has to come together over the last couple of weeks of the campaign in a way that can push them and propel them to victory.
So, this idea that kind of going back to the Reagan, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Do you think that in this last bit of the campaign, is that a winning message for Donald Trump?
If I were him, I would be saying nothing else. And I think that's the reason I think he was ahead on Biden, is because he was able to say that this was the Biden administration and that he could return to a better time, and that's his path to victory. But I'm not sure that he can make the case as effectively against Harris as he was making it against Joe Biden, or whether he can stay focused on that particular part of the message and not get distracted. As we said, he's got to stay focused on message if he's gonna win this campaign. And Harris has to, on the flip side, I think, has to make this constantly about change. She is the future, and if she can get people thinking about and focused on the future and not about the past, I think she wins the election.
Yeah, it's interesting how they've been able to change Biden was old and Trump was young and vigorous, and now Trump looks old and she's young and vigorous. So it's a lot of things happen, and it's interesting to me how in the campaign cycle, it seems it's sped up. Maybe it's because of this unique cycle, but also I think we have so much more access to information and quick information that things can change faster than they used to. It used to be that change was hard on a campaign. It took a long time to disseminate information.
Yeah, and one of the amazing things about this particular campaign cycle is it felt like the race was set, then it was reset, then it's been reset again, and in 2 months, there's no telling what's going to happen, but I can tell you we're going to be here to talk about it. So that's it for episode 12 of Inside Political Science. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Inside Political Science is a production from KAMU, Aggieland's Public Television and Radio. For more information, visit tx.ag/Inside Political Science. Have a question for our experts? Email them at insidepolici@tamu.edu. Also, subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss a new episode.